Welcome to the Property People Presents podcast. Thank you for joining us and thank you to our guests to come here today. We're here to talk about everything supply related. So before we start, please do introduce yourselves for those that may not know you.
I'm Rob from Motivate. Motivate provide gym equipment services, fitness management, maintenance on gyms and pools across residential blocks and other sectors.
Hi, I'm Jamie Willsdon, co-founder of Future Group and group director. Future Group provide compliance, maintenance, reactive repairs across block and property management estates throughout the southeast of the UK.
Hi, I'm Matthew, come from BlockDebt, founder of BlockDebt. We're a outsourced credit control company for suppliers to the property industry.
So to kick things off, what do people think your role involves versus reality?
I guess, I don't know what people think I do. I mean, my team think I don't do anything. I think they just think I sit behind my desk and don't do an awful lot. But the reality is that, you know, we're firefighting constantly with maintenance issues and problems with staff members and residents. And yeah, it's a full-on industry, and you know, with us providing on-site staff, it's no different in some respects to property management. You know, we've got 120 staff that are based on residential developments, and we have the same problems that property managers do with performance and management and everything else, and then double that with the chemical controls and balancing water chemistry and resident expectations of going for a swim at lunchtime and their pool's closed, and yes.
It's a customer-facing role, though, isn't it? Because obviously I've worked with you guys over the years, and you guys have looked after a lot of the gyms that I've managed when I was a property manager. And you guys do sometimes get it, because when a resident wants to go to the gym or use the pool and it's not working, your guys on the front desk need to be trained on delivering bad news. But also it's kind of a bit of a relationship with the managing agent where you're proactively communicating to the customers, aren't you, that certain services are not going to be available. Yeah,
exactly. You know, the communication the team deliver it's the make or break moment, really, whether it gets through to the resident in a good way or a bad way. So a lot of training goes into their customer service, and it's quite unique in you know, we're in the fitness industry, but we're in the property industry, and you know, in the fitness industry, there's not so much of a customer service element to it. So our recruitment strategy is quite different from the fitness industry, and it can be quite challenging at times. Yeah.
But I've seen expectations change drastically on, for example, like companies like yourself, because initially it was, I've used you guys at gyms where there's no pools and there's unmanned, and you've just got to come in, maintain the equipment, make sure it's working, replace it, etc. To the point where now there's an expectation for personal trainers, classes, and then it's about keeping in touch with whatever's like popular at the moment. See, I'm not even going to pretend like I know what it is, but whether it's Peloton spinning and I don't know, ropey stuff, and you know, I've seen them doing the ropes. You know what the fancy name for it? What is it?
I don't know. You mean battle ropes, probably?
Yeah, battle ropes. And you went abroad to do some fitness thing, and a couple of my clients did. What's it called? The
Ironmans.
Yeah, Ironmans. So there's all sorts. So if you ask me what Iron Man was, I think he was that character from Marvel, right? Yeah. But you do have to start.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. You know, we're in the fitness industry, so we're here to provide a bridge essentially between property management and fitness. And so, you know, we can't expect property managers to understand what the current trends are in the fitness industry. So that's where we come in and support them, providing those classes and those additional services. And you know, historically it was, and you know, going back probably 10 years or so, it was just all about compliance, and it was, you know, you've got to make sure the kit's working and the pool's working, and
which is still vital, right?
Which is absolutely still vital.
They're basic necessities, right?
100%.
They should be delivered without negotiation.
They're the given that you have to do. And then now, where the shift is happening, and it's not really a shift; it's more of an additional, is where, you know, it's that engagement piece with residents, where residents want to have fitness events. And, you know, we've done we've just launched the first residential High Rocks affiliated gym in Manchester, which is really exciting.
That's what I was thinking of, High Rocks, not Iron Man. Yeah. But okay. I like Iron Man too, but
Okay. So it's changing over the years, and I think now the shift is moving towards more well-being and wellness, and sort of possibly softening some of those fitness services and providing a more rounded approach to to well-being. Basically, it's not everyone wants to do high rocks or
Yeah.
Ironman races.
Are you starting to see maybe the shape and design of newer gyms within residential blocks looking different or factoring in some of these ideas?
Yeah, I think with some of the more forward-thinking developers, for sure, they're a lot more open to additional spaces as well. Historically, gyms were a tick box; they were a selling piece, and it was quite often that we would say, "Oh, we've turned a one-bedroom apartment into a gym," and we were like, "Great, thanks very much."
I know what building you're talking about.
Yeah,
I think I was managing that, but yeah.
But now, we've got gyms on the 44th floor, gyms and pools on the 44th floor in Manchester. They're dedicated premium spaces that, developers are really seeing the value in having those amenities in those prime positions.
What do you think's created that shift in thinking?
I think it's always been there in the States, and I think we're just a little bit behind. America is leading the way. They've had gyms in apartment buildings for 30 plus years. I mean, that was one of the reasons that Motivate was started. And I think now we're kind of catching up with that. I think, fitness and well-being is playing a lot more of everyday life for so many people. People that didn't really exercise before are now more conscious of their own well-being and their own health and fitness journey. And it doesn't have to be running on a treadmill. It could be yoga. It could be Pilates. It could be anything. It could be journaling, for example. It doesn't have to even be fitness related. But I think that there is, since the COVID times, everyone's a bit more aware of what they are and what they're doing in terms of their own health. Yeah.
And what matters, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And work-life balance with more working from home. I think developers are well aware of that now, and you've got more co-working spaces in developments than we've ever had. And the gyms are an extension of that. People want to work out now, and the peaks and troughs that we used to get mornings and evenings in gym usage is now a lot flatter. You still get them, but generally speaking, it's now a much flatter curve.
Jamie, I reckon there's probably not much high rocks and Ironmans and stuff like that within your business, potentially, and what you guys do, but there's probably a lot that you can relate with.
I think. Feel the staff are into it. No, ours is totally nowhere near that. So ours is compliance-based predominantly. The misconceptions, I think our clients think that I've just got lots of engineers on pegs waiting for something to break. I think our business is built on trying to prevent that, being sort of proactive and finding the best ways to prevent those breaks. So we're busy in the background looking at initiatives and innovating to try and prevent that. So our preventative maintenance is huge, and the technologies are always improving for the kit that we're fitting. So the misconception is, future's there for when something breaks. I think actually 80% of our business is trying to prevent them breaks and trying to improve what's there to save costs. Yeah.
I hope you don't mind me asking you, but I'd like you to focus on the two words you just said, which were preventative maintenance, because they're two words that slip out of a property manager's mouth very often, including myself back in the day. But actually, no, I'm actually quietly confident that no one actually realizes what it actually means, even though I think if they think about it, they'll get it, right?
Yeah.
But tell us what preventative maintenance means.
The best way to explain it is something mechanical, like grease a hinge. If the hinge has not been greased, then that eventually that hinge is going to break. And that's the same across, the electrical sector as well. So, light fittings, just to make sure that they are connected, the right fittings in the right environment, that light fitting's being controlled correctly. When I first entered this sector some 12 years ago, the reason I was pulled to it, and my background is lighting controls, and I used to drive past towers upon tower with lights on 24/7. So that's where the name Future Lighting. I wanted to bring the lighting in these blocks into the future, and that was controls. So that's preventative. That's a light fitting that's burning is the most inefficient. You're reducing the lifetime of that fitting. So we're looking at ways that we can, prevent those costs down the line.
But let's use that greasing the hinge analogy because it's simple, right?
Yeah.
The cost of greasing the hinge versus the cost of not greasing the hinge.
Massive, absolutely massive. So especially in these new modern blocks, just going back to the hinge, big doors, big expensive doors, big extensive gates and barriers, etc. And if we're not maintaining them and we're not providing that service, then we witness the after part of that, which is a gate that needs full replacement due to a lack of maintenance.
So looking at your company name, Future Group.
Yes.
What does the ideal future look like to you?
It's gone deep.
Yeah, that is deep. There'll always be compliance. There will always be maintenance. But we've seen a massive improvement in certainly in the light and electrical side and the fire system side. The future will be open protocol, non-closed protocol equipment that anyone can work on.
Sorry, just in case someone's watching and doesn't get it, what is the difference between an open protocol and closed protocol system?
So a closed protocol system is normally a manufacturer installed system that only that manufacturer can work on.
So an example of that is like you could have a building with a car park gate that's automated, but that car park gate is closed protocol, meaning that only the installer or a certain company can actually maintain, repair, and have access to the parts and service it.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And
that causes an issue for a property manager because
timeline, trying to get a specialist engineer from that company out against using a pool of contractors that can work on that. So that's parts, you're tied to that manufacturer and those parts. I think there was a big issue, and I think it's definitely improving, but with door entry systems, they were installed at developer stage by a manufacturer and no one else could work on that door entry system. So it was costly for the repair or the reactive that they were let down. We see it in fire systems. There's a lot of systems where there is still a percentage of, but that's improving. So the future will be open protocol systems that any contractor, that gives the block manager, our client, a pool of contractors that they can rely on rather than a sole manufacturer. Yeah.
Okay. And across the countries, a question for you both actually. We are going to ask you a few questions shortly, don't worry, mate. But obviously the services that you provide are very relevant to all real estate within England, right? Or across the United Kingdom. But correct me if I'm wrong, you predominantly are working with block managers within residential real estate. So
yeah,
why?
I would say 98% of our business is the leasehold block management sector. Yeah, the only crossover really is if there's commercial parts to those developments, but
like a mixed-use development.
Yeah, predominantly, our business has been, and that's I think because we've understood it, and over the years we've got a much better understanding of it. We've created a name for ourselves, and it feels that we are, it's working well for us in this. So I've always said let's not scattergun with our marketing, for instance. Let's focus on a sector and become the leader, the go-to. And that's,
why do you think that actually matters?
With regards to
being focused on one sector or having one particular USP or goal?
Just for the spread. I think we can, the cost for marketing and being out there. I think relations certainly in this sector are huge. I think if we try to have the relations we've got across all sectors, I just think it becomes slightly fragmented where, I think, and a massive part of, I suppose, our day is keeping those relations live and healthy. And if we've done that across all sectors, I just think we don't become as I suppose, as important as we are to our clients. Yeah, I guess.
So, Rob, obviously, there's gyms in hotels, residential blocks, commercial spaces.
Our business is quite diverse in terms of the service offering. So, when it comes to the maintenance, a treadmill is a treadmill, whether it's in a residential building or a hotel or a commercial gym. It makes no difference, really. Jamie's right, relationships are key, and certainly 80% of our maintenance contracts are across the residential sector. Leasehold, BTR, PBSA, etc. Management services, again, very similar. We do a lot within residential. We're doing more in the corporate world now with law firms and financial institutions, which it's been really interesting. Seeing
is there a difference? Yeah, I was just going to ask.
Massively so. Yeah, massively so.
Why?
I mean, the budgets are significantly higher in the corporate world. We go to, for example, we work with one law firm in the city, and it's just there is almost an unlimited budget for events and things like that, and it's seen as an employee benefit. So they're there to, I mean, ultimately law firms, as you all know, they're there to keep their lawyers there earning money. So, and the more we can do, the better, basically. It's probably a slightly more relaxed setting as well, in a strange way. Less
That's quite
pressured.
interesting, given that a resident you would think is more relaxed in their own home environment. And you're at work and you're not probably as relaxed. Why do you think that is?
I think there's an element of within residential property that the residents are paying for the gym. Whilst it's a relatively small part of their service charge, there is this conception that they are paying for their gym. Whereas in the corporate world, the employees aren't paying for it; their employer is paying for it, and so they see it as much more of a benefit. And so the complaints, we don't get complaints in corporate.
Is it easier to deliver bad news within a corporate gym than it is to, say, a block of residential?
Yes, I would say so. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's the expectations are still there. Our client, the law firm, the facilities team, or the HR team, whoever we work with, their expectations and their standards are still very high. They still want their treadmill fixed quickly. So there's no respite just because it's a corporate offering rather than a residential. I think the difference is you don't get the end user complaints so much.
Do you feel that's because there's less of an emotional attachment to it? So when it's a resident, they, like you said, they're paying for it.
Yeah.
They want that service personally provided to them,
Yes.
whereas an employee isn't as emotionally attached to it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, definitely. There is no emotional tie with an employee. They're there to do their job, and the gym is a benefit to them to use in their lunch breaks or before or after work. And they're incredibly lucky, and most of them really know they're incredibly lucky to have that facility, because most people at their offices don't have luxury gyms with...
It's a perk, right?
It is, yeah.
I can't imagine me saying that a residential gym's a perk to a leaseholder. I think they wouldn't.
No,
like
I don't think that would go down too well, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay. So what does good service look like, Jamie, to you? Like, I remember seeing on your LinkedIn recently where I think you hired out a cinema. Is that right? You hired out a cinema and you were presenting to the business, giving a business update.
Yes.
And it looked quite good, because when I was reading through the comments, some of your employees were actually quite engaging and really happy with how it went. But what does good service look like? And did you speak about it maybe on the day?
Yeah, I don't stop banging on about good service. Yeah. We've got some real sort of tight rails in the business. And for me, the client, like every business, is number one. Good service, I think, for us is making our clients' day that bit easier, taking some weight from them, and making sure that we act as we promise. So if we say they're going to be there between 8 and 10, we will be there between 8 and 10. And if we're not, we need to tell them. I always use the analogy of the washing machine repairman. If you're waiting in all day and he doesn't turn up, you've just wasted the morning waiting for the washing machine repairman. Where if that guy had called you to say, I'm going to be slightly late, you could have gone to the shop. So that's mitigated that big problem. I think, like for us, it's about sticking to the promise, being on time, and just taking some weight from the back of the property managers who are getting it from all sorts of angles. So yeah, service for me is key. I can't bang on enough about the 1% and us being that 1% better. We're always trying to go that bit further. I'd say of my slides of that presentation, we have an AGM every year. Just really for the staff to understand the business. We're really transparent in Future Group, numbers, where we're going.
And it's quite a funky AGM, isn't it? The setting is quite nice and relaxed.
It was good, yeah. It was good.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so we hired a Everyman cinema in Stratford. And yeah, I mean, it was very strange being at the front of that, to be fair, because I felt very small. And as the tears were rising, there was just, I remember the Gremlins. It was like the Gremlins film when I looked in there. And there was popcorn everywhere and there was a few beers and stuff. But yeah, it was really good. Just the slides were so big, and I was bringing up slides of new starters, and there was just these huge faces of these. They was just looking at me. Yeah.
Do you get nervous, kind of presenting, or like?
Yeah, the first 10 minutes is a bit of a battle, and then it starts to flow. And we have our annual awards there, and we recognise, people for their achievements throughout the year. And so the first half is quite, and the poor guys who've been in the business for some time, you can see their faces thinking, here we go again, like Jamie's setting the stall out again. But by the second half, it's all about celebration. And yeah, it's good. Nice. I get such good feedback.
Jamie, it's your business, right? And you've been running a business for quite a long time now, as I understand it.
I have, yeah.
I think it's really important to normalise that it's okay to be nervous as well.
Oh, God, yeah.
So what would you say about that? Like, if somebody was watching and thought, what's he getting nervous for?
I think you're harder on yourself, to be honest. I mean, if sitting here watching this back, I just don't think anyone likes seeing themselves on camera, on the microphone.
Yeah.
I think the years that I've been doing it, they've definitely got easier. The problem is the audience has got bigger, so it is nervy. But I think everyone respects it. I mean, if I make a mistake or a slip up or I miss a part, I think it eats me more than anyone. No one really listens. I think slowing down. I think if you looked at the recordings of the previous years, I'm really speeding through it with nerves. But I think it's just human to be nervous. Right?
It really is. It's something that we all are so concerned as human beings about ourselves more than actually listening to the other individual.
Yeah.
So we know what we wanted to say, but nobody else knows that, right?
No.
We only know our internal script.
Yeah.
So actually nobody else really minds if you might stutter your words or if you don't say what you'd planned to say.
No.
And it's just about how you deliver the information.
Yeah, I've done lots of speeches on EV charging. It was the big thing. And so I get invited to these events, and I mean, everyone seems to be engaged, but for me, I've said the same story. There's how many times, so it's me almost falling asleep. But yeah, I mean, I get great feedback from that. But on the way there, the previous days, there's nerves.
It's that tension,
I just think, if there wasn't, I don't think I'd be human, right?
Yeah. And sorry, Matt, let's bring you into the conversation. Sorry, let's start. So, from your perspective, what does good service look like, and what are the misconceptions around what you do? Because you handle something that probably has quite a negative connotation, which is you're handling bad debt, right?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the big misconceptions is what we do. A lot of people, when we first come in, thought we was the sort of the debt collection side of things.
Your bailiffs either side.
The bailiff side, yeah, and they provide a great service, but that's not what we are. We're here for like credit management, credit control management, should I say, and invoice management, and looking after sort of brand protection for companies, because with our clients, it's very personal. Debt is a very personal thing. Everyone likes to sort of champion this is what we're turning over, but they don't. It's quite an upsetting thing looking at the debt side of it. So we can take that to one side. We can press a bit harder as well without sort of damaging reputations, and we provide statistics to our clients of sort of who's the good payers and who's probably not as good, to help guide them through their journey, and hopefully they can grow with having us on the side, working with them, and also working with the property management companies as well. We're trying to take some stress off those guys, because we know that they get hammered with chasing. So if we can kind of work as a group of companies, a collection of companies, rather than individual invoices, we can kind of sometime soon start to rein back on the amount of contact that they have in a sense of individuals, so we can work as a bulk.
I'll say something. We've spoken a few times, but I'll tell you something that I've never told you before. So when I first heard about what you were doing, I was very skeptical of your service offering. I knew you weren't going to be another debt collector, but even once I understood what your approach was going to be, I thought, this ain't going to work. Sorry, just to be honest with you.
Yeah.
All right. And I thought, sorry, the contractor's going to get somebody else now to speak to the managing agent to ask them to pay an invoice. As a property manager or a managing agent, you're going to get a bit annoyed now that you're telling somebody else that there's a debt, because debt can be quite emotive, right?
Yeah.
But actually, I think when I'm following you, you've been to roundtables, I've seen how you've grown, the number of contractors that have signed up with you. I've proven wrong, right? Because you've grown, and actually you are. But it's because you're focusing on relationships with agents, and it's not very a hard-hitting approach, right? But tell us a bit about that relationship with the agents, who in essence are potentially the guys that owe the money, the debtor, on behalf of their client.
Yeah, it's quite strange when we first sort of come into the industry, going to events and sort of feeling sort of the glares of some people looking at us. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to be professional. At the end of the day, work's been carried out. The work's been instructed, so it's got to be dealt with, and we're trying to deal with it in a nice, professional, friendly, helpful manner, scheduling in meetings with people rather than just sort of hammering phone calls and random phone calls and emails, and just that consistent, nice approach rather than sort of the aggressive nature. I think it gives our clients time to focus on their key business part, because credit controls, it is time consuming, and it's not fun for a lot of people. So it is the importance is trying to allow the companies that our clients chance to grow and evolve, as well as us taking more clients in. And obviously the more clients we've got, the easier it's going to be for us to deal with property managers as well, and property management companies like accounts companies as well. And that's kind of the plan. It's been a slow growth, but it's been nice. It's been a nice ergonomic growth. So it's been going all right.
Something I want to ask you is, with it being such an emotive job, such a tough job, right? You're asking to essentially clear debt. How do you derive joy from that job?
When you get in invoices, we had one last year. We started trading 2.5 years ago, and we recovered an invoice that was overdue by 2,051 days.
Oh, wow.
So it's from 2019. So that's things you get joy from.
Yeah.
So it's been dragging along. The companies we look after have been chasing it. And then we've come in, and it took us a couple of months, but that's the kind of joys we get from it. The joy for us is watching our clients grow and having better cash flow and not being as stressed, and allowing the leaders of their companies to be able to focus on what they're doing. So there's joy in that.
Yeah.
Give us some intel, or give us some interesting stats or information or feedback that you get from managing agents when you guys are doing your job.
So we've one of our clients, when we first come in, they was averaging around 48-day payment terms, which is what, from the day they invoiced, that was the average time it took to get paid an invoice. We're now down to around sort of 23, 25. So from our client side, we've sped up the time it takes for them to get paid, which obviously is good for them for their cash flow. And managing agents, we've actually got a reasonably good relationship with everyone I've been to meet. Has appreciated what we're trying to do, I think, and appreciates where we're trying to get to as well. We built our own platform and portal, our invoice management portal, which will be open to our clients so they can sort of see what they've got and their averages. Everyone's got an account system, but sometimes just plucking that information out can be quite consuming as well. We're going to have got a nice dashboard we're building that they'll have instant access to quite key stats. And it'll be the same for the property management side as well. They'll be able to log in and feedback in that direction. So
it's a portal where your clients, the contractors, will upload their invoices.
Yeah.
And then the managing agent will have access to that.
Yeah, so we're moving to a consolidated email statement once a week for contractors, because obviously there's some out there that have hundreds of invoices a month, and they don't want to get 1,000 emails a month from us or from anybody saying that your outstanding balances. So we're looking at scaling that back to one email per week with an active statement which they can click and download, and they can see the values and the amount of invoices, and also downloading the invoices that they're missing, which happens quite a fair bit, which will hopefully save them a lot of time, because I know admin-wise is quite a killer for people. So that's where we're looking at moving towards.
Can I ask you, what made you think, okay, this is an area that I want to get involved with? What made you become a business owner, and what challenges have you faced since doing that?
Yeah, it's a good shout. I've been in the property industry for sort of 17 years. I moved from private rental to BTR, and then had some time out after my last job and was wondering what I was going to do. and got in a conversation with a couple of business owners who were looking for sort of credit control information and advice, and maybe someone coming in, and then sort of we come up with the idea of forming Block Debt, which was sit separately. The challenges have been, like I said, is the people's misconceptions of what we are and who we are. But I think being out in the public and going to events and hopefully sort of going to meeting managing agents, that's changed that opinion. We're here to help and reduce friction with stuff. So that's
why do you care so much about that?
I think it's important. If people have done a good job and the job's been done properly and it's been asked of them to do, then I think it's important that people should be paid for what they've done, especially if it's all been quoted correctly, all the work's been satisfactorily done. So, yeah, it's not the most fun to talk about, but it's important. I mean, at the end of the day, without cash flow, people aren't employed.
100%. They're standards that need to be met, right?
Yeah.
And I think within this industry or this profession, we're quite often shy to talk about money or shy to request a higher value for the services that we're providing, because we just feel like it's always been done a certain way. Service charge costs are so high, and naturally I think people go within their shell when it comes to commercials. It's not an easy conversation to have. And what I quite like about what you're doing is that you're focusing on relationships, not the actual the element of the debt. It's actually saying, right, these suppliers are people too, and they deserve to be paid for the services that they've delivered, rather than solely focusing on this is the amount of outstanding debt and focusing on it from that element.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things we've done some roundtables, which you mentioned earlier on, when we had managing agents in there, suppliers in there, we had insurance companies, we had solicitors in there. And
consultants.
Consultants, sorry. And it was important to get, it was interesting to hear certain views from the managing agent side, and then suppliers to speak to them as well, to find out what happens at this point, why is there a blockage, and sort of and highlighting that and getting people to talk about it. But yeah, it's quite an eye-opener.
Thank you for watching our episode. I just wanted to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, JB Leitch. They're a firm of solicitors acting within the United Kingdom. Fantastic firm who I've used whilst I was a property manager over the years. Whether it's a license to alter, a deed of variation, or any complex debt matters, or even updates on recent legislation, or even some CPD training, they're a fantastic firm of solicitors I've used over the years, so I'd highly recommend reaching out to them. Their details can be provided within the comments below. If I could bring you in, Rob, we've spoken about sort of debtors in the past as well, right?
Yeah.
What proactive property managers and managing agents should be doing. Give us an example, or give us a good news story, because it's not all doom and gloom, right?
No, I mean, the majority, I mean, we struggle with cash flow and with overdue invoices and things. And, you know, we've got a member of staff who, she's got a bit of a split role. So, you know, half of her role is basically collecting debt in the same way that, you know, you and your team do. But we have had certainly one instance, which I dealt with probably about 8 years ago now, where we'd done a good few £1,000s worth of work. I think it was about £6,000, and the property manager rang me up about a week before the invoice was due, and she just said, "Look, Rob, I'm really sorry. I don't have the money to pay you. Can we pay you a couple of £1,000s now, and then we'll pay you £1,000 a month until the invoice is settled?" And I sort of sat there and I was like, "Oh, that's a bit." I'd never had that happen before, and so I was a bit taken aback. But, you know, from our perspective, that property manager kept to her word, and we received the £2,000 within a couple of days, and we received £1,000 every month. We didn't have to chase the debt, and it came in. And yes, don't get me wrong, the invoice should have been settled 4 months prior, but it was an open and honest conversation. And, you know, we can then manage our cash flow with having known that. We knew we were going to get £1,000 a month, and that was going to help settle that debt.
Do you feel you were happy to take that approach because you trusted that individual?
Ironically, at the time, I didn't actually know the individual very well. No. Now we have a very good working relationship, and we've worked together really closely since. Possibly from that conversation being the trigger point. But at the time, it was a decision of, well, either I say no and we don't get anything, and then it takes up loads of time chasing debt, and it's probably going to get paid in the same amount of time anyway, or we can just work collaboratively and have an open and honest conversation. And I honestly think, with cash flow and with debt and invoices and things, the open and honest way is just the best. We all have cash flow problems, whether it's service charge income or business income or whatever it is. There are times when we can't pay our suppliers on time. It happens.
I think it's about managing expectations. If you're told and you understand, you can budget and you can forecast accordingly to deal with it. So, but if you don't know, it's the not knowing of when it's going to drop in your account is the tough bit, especially with large invoices.
Communication and relationship, isn't it? It's so important.
I think communication is the foundation of any good working relationship. And like I say, I now work really closely with that property manager, and have done for the last 8 years. And we talk regularly. And
that's awesome. The fact you're talking about that incident from 8 years ago is it's telling, isn't it? It reminds me of, we've actually got a bit of space there, but there was supposed to be an extra chair. And Steve from Dayco was meant to be here today, but he called me at 7 a.m. this morning. And to be fair, he was very, very unwell, probably just man flu. So slightly.
We miss him. We miss him, but I'm glad
we miss him. We're glad he's not here today. But it reminds me of, I think I used to use him as a business 15 years ago when I was a property manager. And interestingly, he was a go-to for reactive maintenance in particular. And I think he was very small at the time, maybe 2 or 3 people within a business, if that. And for 3 or 4 years, I used him amongst a few others. And then after that, we just didn't cross paths for maybe, I want to say 10 years, could be 8, could be 11 years. And I bumped into him at an event only a year ago. So it's been a long time. And we were conversating and just having a conversation over a coffee at this networking event. I think he had a bottle of beer in his hand, but I was drinking coffee as I always do. And we were talking like nothing had changed. I've not given this guy a single penny over that period of time. But because we had a very healthy relationship when he was supporting me on my portfolio, it just felt like yesterday. Yeah. And it's so important to have these relationships, right?
Massive.
Yeah. So I'm guessing that probably has generated more income for you guys as well. With that conversation you had with her 8 years ago, I mean, if you'd have said no, she wouldn't have potentially then used you. But that's also a problem that suppliers have got.
Fortunately, that relationship has led to other business, where she's moved businesses and moved agents and now actually works client side. And yeah, we're her first port of call, fortunately, for any gym or pool problems. And yeah, it's definitely helped, 100%.
Yeah, you can't really put a value on or like a marketing budget on building relationships like that, right?
No, you can't.
Kudos to you both. So Jamie, tell us about an interesting or unusual request that you've had and you've had to turn it down.
Oh, blimey.
Within business, by the way, not outside of work.
Okay.
Keep it clean.
That's easier.
Yeah, please.
Wow. Just recently, we was asked to recover a lost snake. A snake escaped from one of the apartments.
Okay. A snake?
A snake, yeah. A bloody big snake as well.
No way.
Yeah, a huge snake. I saw a photograph of it. Yeah, it was someone had seen it in a bin store or something. So, yeah, I mean, we don't do that. We don't normally do that. But Louis, who heads up the regen division, he sent someone out to look. But I think before we got there was a call to say it died. Poor snake, someone had killed it and threw it in the bin store. Yeah, but that was really weird. I was like, really? Wow. Yeah. So that was probably the strangest.
You'd think we'd live in Australia or something like that. Jeez.
Yeah, and it wasn't a small snake.
Imagine being a resident walking around with a property manager and there's a snake on the loose.
In a bin store, yeah.
Imagine being a property manager and getting an email saying, "Hi, excuse me, there's a snake in the common areas. Can you send the contract?" I wouldn't know where to start.
No,
yeah.
I've had some funny requests.
Because I probably wouldn't have. Yeah, I'd have said no.
It can't be that big though. I just watched Anaconda 2 weeks ago, the new one that's out. So yeah, it was pretty tiny.
I'm sure. I know. I don't think it was that big. Yeah, that was a very strange request. Most of the time is, can you meet me and look at this? Yeah, we'll be asked to go and travel the other side of London to look at something, and it's, I don't know, it's like a little something quite small and wrong, and I just think maybe we could have done that via a photograph or a video call. Video call.
Yeah,
they're strange requests sometimes.
Yeah,
look at all sorts of things. But no, that was probably up there with the weirdest ones that we've received.
What about you, Rob?
We've had a few, and the one that springs to mind is dog swimming. We had a resident asked to go swimming with their dog in one of the pools that we managed. We've had a few requests for dogs in gyms, actually. A few people want to exercise their dogs on treadmills. I don't know what's wrong with the park, but yeah, it's.
What do you say?
Have you got any animal stories?
I mean, it's a polite decline. Yeah, unfortunately, dogs can swim in lakes, and there are actually pools that do run dog swimming sessions.
Yeah.
But not. I can't see it going down too well with the other leaseholders.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So, Matt, what have you had? Any snakes, dogs?
Any animals?
Yeah.
What about your Dobermans?
We've had a couple of interesting scenarios, not so much in the property management world because it's a bit more stable, but definitely in the private rental side of it was a bit more lively.
Yeah.
Doing site visits and things like that, and yeah.
What have you seen? Come on, tell.
Someone tried to kidnap me, which was fun.
They kidnapped you or tried to?
Yeah, attempted to. And I've had someone attack me in court as well. So that was all sort of...
How did they try and kidnap you? Did they have a van parked on the side?
Yeah, pretty much exactly that. It was
He was such a nice guy. What was someone doing?
Yeah.
Or what did you used to be like?
I mean, people get very emotional about money. That's all you can say, really. But yeah, that was probably the fun one. Getting attacked in court was quite interesting. It was a few years ago.
That must have been one large debt that they tried to kidnap you.
It was fairly significant.
To be clear, it was outside of the block management world, right? We're not talking about a managing agent trying to kidnap Matt from block debt.
No managing agents have been harmed in this.
Yeah.
Would have been really good.
The property people uncovers.
Yeah, we could do a little side story on that. But yeah, it's all been fairly... I think there's probably been quite a lot of openness and transparency with managing agents, so it's all been fairly calm so far. So touch wood.
Touch wood. So guys, we've talked a lot about kind of day-to-day shop and what we do and why we do it. But ultimately, and I'll start with you, Jamie, why did you start the Future Group? And has it always been a childhood dream? You always wanted to do that? Or where's it come from?
I don't think it was a childhood dream, but Dad always had his own businesses, so I'd imagine that a lot of his sort of watching what he was doing obviously had some effect on me. So after I finished my apprenticeship, I bought an old sort of second-hand van, and at the age of 20 started my first business. 21 started my first business, which I grew and grew and grew, but made lots of mistakes on the way. Obviously, that was just all about self-learning. And I lost that business just after the crash in 2008. I think by 2011, that one, I was playing golf actually. I was doing very well, but playing with my friend who was a trader at the time, and he said, "This is going to really affect you." It was when Lehman Brothers went. I don't know if you remember them carrying the boxes out of the bank. We was watching it on telly. 3 years later, I think
that 2008.
That was 8 when the crash happened,
yeah.
and I think 11 was when like the tsunami of the it hit us sort of 2 or 3 years later. And a lot of builders that we were working for, developers, they was going pop, and obviously we got hit. And my accountant walked in the room and said, "It's time to throw the towel in." I was like, "What?" It was just before.
How
Christmas.
did that make you feel? I can only imagine.
Well, I think we had about 40 members of the team there, and then it was a few days before Christmas, and I was like, "No way!" And it was no mistake of my own. I mean, I made loads of mistakes, and probably letting the contractors getting away with such. I was running lots of sites at the time. It was great when it was working. It didn't take much for it to go the wrong way. And then I put my head in the sand for a minute, and then I thought, hang on a minute, no, there's something there, I can do something. So built a quick business with an investor over a quick 2 years and sold that back to the investor. That was doing same sort of lighting controls for blue chip companies in London, carbon credits, trying to find solutions so they could let their buildings efficiently. But driving between that, just seeing these towers and towers of lights on residential blocks. And I thought, I can bring the future to this. And that's where Future Lighting was born, 2014,
Nice.
And and the other divisions, the departments have grown mainly from being requested by our clients. You look after our lights so well. Can't you look after our fire alarms? And so organically, the departments have been added to the business. And I think 6 years ago, we decided to call it the group because it was getting too confusing.
Yeah.
There was lots of little divisions within it. So that's where Future is. So and we've always tried to innovate and find the next thing, the EV charging, for instance.
So going back to kind of something you mentioned that was must have been really hard hitting, is that you had to let people go around Christmas. How on earth did you have those conversations? How did it make you feel? How were they, and how did you deal with that?
God, it was some time ago, but I didn't enjoy it whatsoever. Lots of guys luckily we managed to, before the liquidators came in, found the money for their wages just before Christmas. But that once those liquidators come in, it's not a nice time. It was a horrible time. It's funny how at the time I can remember being in a real bad place, but being a human, it doesn't take long for thit's like I broke my leg. It was horrendous. I remember it, but now I don't feel any of that pain, and I think it's the same then. But yeah, it was bad. There was a lot of my suppliers who I'd worked with for time, and they wasn't paid. It wasn't a great time.
Did you do anything in particular to kind of cope with that situation, or have a shoulder to, or an ear to, listen? And
so Dad was great for that. I'd seen him go through something similar back in the 80s. He had a big factory, he was manufacturing blinds, and he had a shop, and I saw him close down that factory, and he had a nice car, and then he was back in a van. And I think probably watching Dad recover, it was probably embedded in me too. So to see him turn the corner, but at the time I just think, God, that's all just been taken away from me. But probably it gave me the energy to go again. I just thought I can do this. I've learned a lot of mistakes, and I won't do it again. And I think I won't work in that sector anymore. So just going back to why the leasehold sector, I think it gives us, although yes, on occasions getting the money in can be tight, can be difficult. We haven't got the problem of developers going bust on me again. So it probably gives me that comfort.
A bit of stability and comfort.
Yeah, I think so. I won't go through that again. And maybe again, that's something that's embedded in me now, and it's preventing me going to these new sectors. But
congratulations on turning it around and being successful, and also being an employer of a group that does employ, and not just experienced staff. You do bring in young people within the business as well and create futures for them as well.
Yeah.
And it's good because your credibility within the market is good. Like I don't think I've ever given you any work because I haven't been a property manager for some time now. But the thing is, we know each other now. We've got to know each other over time, and you are serving managing agents, and I hear really good things. So congrats. And
thank you.
I even bump into randoms like I did last week, and we were just talking startup business, really young guy and so likable, and he's been messaging me on LinkedIn for a while. And when we were talking, he just said, I'm trying my best, I got this. He said, I got a great mentor. I said, oh, who's that? And he said, oh, do you know Jamie from Future Group? I was like, oh, okay. And it was just so nice to hear. So, I know a lot of you guys do stuff behind the scenes, which is good.
Yeah.
Selfless service, we call it. Yeah,
a lot of young men, that's something that, I take real pride on, I guess. That's one of the paybacks is over girls too, but predominantly the apprentices that are coming out of school, the young lads who are coming out of school.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think there aren't more women in the supply field?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, there's no reason why there shouldn't be. There are girl electricians because I've seen them out there, but I've never employed one. Actually, when I done my apprenticeship, there was a young girl who was doing hers at the time, but I just don't know why. I mean, I don't know if it's. You can make a fantastic career out of it, and there's no reason. Certainly, the maintenance side. I mean, why not? And I would take one 100%, and I think.
Okay, you heard that, ladies.
Yes.
If you're looking to get into this field, contact Jamie.
Yes, I definitely would. So that's one thing that's paid me back is watching these young lads, and probably 30 or 40, I guess, who have worked for me over the number of businesses I've had, and I'm watching them now, and they've been successful, big houses, and they've all made a real career out of it. So that's something.
To be clear, you still do employ women though, because I've met Kate.
Lots of women. Yeah. And obviously, younger ladies from school or just out of college, and I've watched them excel. I mean, a few of the girls who work for us now, they've just moved up the ranks. It's fantastic to watch. Yeah,
that's awesome. We touched on interesting and unusual requests. We spoke about the snakes and all of that, the dog pools and all of that, and you getting kidnapped. But okay, that wasn't a request though, was it?
Sure.
Can make it happen. No. But there's quite a spotlight on our sector, and there's an assumption of inflated charges, contractors giving money to agents, contractors doing favours for property managers. What would you say to that whole topic of commissions and brown
Oh.
paper envelopes, etc.?
I've never done it and I never will do it. I mean, Future Group are quite known for merchandise. We like to give out all sorts of stuff. We've given out slippers.
What's the best merchandise?
I already know the answer to that.
The slippers.
Slippers.
It's got to be the slippers.
I didn't get
Slippers
it.
were-
Really?
yeah.
I didn't
I
get
saw it
any.
all over the
I don't know what
socials. Yeah.
slippers had to do with Future Group.
My wife loved the Future Group
Really?
slippers. Yeah, she still wears them now.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
a T-shirt as well, and they're really well made.
Yeah,
but
good t-shirts.
but they're quite
Yeah,
a tight
but
fit. So my
slippers and a
missus wears it.
t-shirt.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've run all sorts. So I guess that, and we try and do events every now and again. So we've recently done a barbecue cooking afternoon. So if we can do that, and that helps us build relations. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, and I've connected to lots of suppliers in this industry. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I would never do it. I think once you do it once, then it's just kickbacks. No. We just provide the right service, and that's it. And I think we've built a name for ourselves for continuing to provide that, and that's enough. But yeah, if we can throw an odd pair of slippers or a t-shirt at someone that helps the relationship, then we
What about you, Rob? Have you experienced any of that over the years?
No, we haven't, to be honest. I hope it doesn't happen, but it probably does in some far-flung corners of the industry. We haven't come across it. We've never been asked for it. We'd never provide it. So no. I mean, we're a little bit like Jamie. We've said thanks to clients before. Every year we send boxes out to some of our clients for their site teams to say thanks very much for working together with us for the last year. But it's a 40, 50 quid hamper that is not. It's not a brown envelope or a.
That's a sincere thank you for the business.
It
not
is, yeah.
Here's a hamper. Now give
here's
us
a hamper.
something
Now
in
give us the
return.
business. Exactly. Yeah.
And what would you say? Because I can, it does take place. I got a phone call a couple of months ago, and it was, "Hey, Sandeep, nice to meet you. We understand that property people don't take commissions. Is that true?" And I went, "Yeah. So we'd like to give you some work." So thank you. It's a good reputation to get in the market, right?
Yeah,
And naturally,
100%.
you're here today because you're fellows of the sector.
Yeah.
And we know you don't do that. So we've done some spot checks before, so you wouldn't be sitting here.
Oh,
if you weren't. But what advice would you give to maybe a startup or even a medium-sized business that's a contractor that's been asked for this and is kind of sitting on the fence and thinking, well, this agent's asking for X percentage or asking for this back, or this property manager's asking me to do this? What advice would you give them?
Wow. I mean, I would only stick to my grounds and just say, don't do it. I mean, I just don't see where that's going to take you. And, you just said there, if something like that leaked, how much damage, all that undoing of all that brand and that name, it doesn't, I think that one time could undo so much hard work. So, yeah, my advice would be to stay away from it. I don't think it needs it. I think if you provide the right service for the right value, then why we don't need to do that. But yeah, maybe it does happen. You won't ever see it at Future Group. I wouldn't allow it. I just keep away from it. That would be my advice.
Yeah,
Rob,
agreed. Yeah, I mean, I say to my kids, honesty is the best policy, and I think keep that in business as well. Just be straight, be honest. Like Jamie, we'd never do it. You'll never see it at Motivate, and I think bad news travels fast. I think if contractors are offering it or managing agents are requesting it, it won't take long for news to travel in that regard. And like Jamie says, the reputation damage is
Not worth it.
Not worth it. No.
Yeah.
Not worth it.
And it's a question to all of you, so I'd like you all to give an answer on this, please. But what advice would you give to someone entering the industry today, whether it's a property manager, somebody even joining service charge accounts teams, credit controllers, or even contractors and suppliers? What advice would you give other than don't take backhanders?
Yeah.
I think, given the fact we're quite new in the industry, I think one of the things I was told is just get your face out there, get known, and make sure people understand what it is you stand for and what you're offering, and try and make it as clear as possible. And and meet as many people as you can, because there's some fantastic people in the industry that have led me to other people. So that's what I'd say.
I think relationships is huge. I think transparency and honesty and educate, because for us, if we can educate the property manager, with regards to what's involved, i.e. getting parts. And I think if we can educate on the why, then the when isn't as important. That slows that pressure down. So I think as much as we can, as much transparency, as much explanation, as much as we can give that property manager, the rush, the when, the immediacy of it seems to calm down. They understand.
There's some real gems in what you've just said. So before we go to you, Rob, because I was doing a site inspection for a client about 2 weeks ago, and I was with quite a young facilities manager. And whilst we were walking, we were looking inside the secure information box, we were looking at fire alarms, and we were looking at various assets within the common areas. And I said, you know what this does? And we went in the plant room and said, you know what this is and what this is? And she said, no. And I said, you've actually got it's quite a large development. And you have a full-time facilities management company on site 5 days a week, which is 2 of them as well. I said, so next time you do your site inspection, grab one of the FMs from the office. So can you just join me and just high level explain to me what that red dongle that looks like a gas canister is in the plant room? Because it's probably a boiler, a water booster pump, and no one's expecting you to understand ultimately how to fix it or how it functions, but just gain knowledge. You have this resource on site.
Sure.
So when you talk about education, do you find yourself doing things like that with managing agents?
Yeah, we try to. We do like lunch and learns where we can, where we just take a topic from one of the departments and we'll grab a few property managers at their office typically, take a plate of sandwiches and a pair of slippers. And we'll spend an hour just sort of educated on certain sort of disciplines within the group. We're just building a little presentation on smoke control and AOV vents. I don't see anyone out there providing that. There probably is. We don't see it. And we've sort of offered that to a few of our clients who've already said, yeah, fantastic, because I think they only need to know they only need to do the basics of it, but that can save so much time and money by just having that bit of an understanding of what it does and how it should work and what it should look like when it's in the right condition, just for their monthly check. So yeah, we've always done that. We found real value in it. I think it's a bit of giving back from us, and it helps us with those relations. And whilst we're there's a Q&A, and all of a sudden it goes completely off-piste. We're earlier to talk about smoke vents, and now we're talking about all sorts of stuff. But I think there's real value there.
And it helps build relationships as well.
Yeah, that's again, and the industry's so fluid, right? So that property manager that we train there is now moved to this property, and they'll say, "Oh, that smoke, presentation you done. Can you bring it here too?" So it's a massive part.
So Rob, you've had a bit of time to think about the advice, even though you've probably engrossed in all of the wisdom that Jamie's sharing. So go on. No pressure,
it's interesting what Jamie was saying about his lunch and learns, because we do training with for the TPI in gyms and pools, and a couple of the slides are around explaining to the property managers the different elements of a pool plant room, because it's a bit of a terrifying environment, plant rooms, for people that aren't used to it. Pools have got chemicals, and you mix chlorine and acid and you get mustard gas, and it's sort of explaining to them that what each element is, so that if they do have a problem, being able to communicate to us roughly what that problem is. Don't expect anyone to be fully conversant in it, but to be able to explain a little bit about what it is can really help us, and we can take the right parts and do a first time fix rather than turning up blind and then having to come back, get the parts and go back again. Knowledge and education, absolutely. And I think
it's really important. It's the same way a property manager can identify why the front entrance door to a block of flats is not working. Is it the electronic mag lock, or is it the friggin' hinges haven't been greased? So it's the same way, right?
It is, yeah. And it's like any new job, or if you're joining the industry, we had a new starter recently join our maintenance team, and we said, what are you going to do for your first couple of weeks? And he said, I'm going to be a sponge. And I thought that was a really good analogy of what to do for the first couple of weeks. Just soak everything in and learn as much as you possibly can. And you might not have a swimming pool or whatever Jamie might be lunching and learning about at that time, but in 5 years, no snakes, but in 5 years' time, you might do. And I think it's important that you kind of build that base level of knowledge. Definitely, yeah. So I think that would be my advice to anyone joining the property sector for sure.
Nice. So we promised our audience that they would get to know the people behind the job titles. So one of our values is feel good. We really want to translate to our customers how we're feeling and help them feel good too. So to each of you, what makes you feel good and how do you bring that into your work life? Go on, Matt, I'm looking straight at you.
I'll go first.
Go for it. Not getting kidnapped.
Yeah. I'm a very family person, love my family. Even my kids when they keep me up at 2:30 this morning.
I love my family, even my kids.
I do, not the majority of the time.
I think we've all been watching this.
And I think it's just having a good outside life, coming to work and trying to and translating that into my work ethic as well. And yeah, that's probably me, I think.
For me, keeping fit. I think that's great for body, but mind as well. I think when I'm not keeping fit, I could definitely feel the effects.
How do you have the time for that? Like running your own business?
5 o'clock in the morning.
Really?
Yeah, that's the only time I can do it because I'm just not sure what happens to my days, and then there's excuses.
What do you do?
In the gym.
Yeah.
A mix of weights and cardio. So one day it will be a run on the treadmill, and then other days, weights. I don't do classes. It's just me with my earphones in, doing the morning nod to the same people who are in there every day, and just getting it done 45 minutes to an hour. Try to do it 5 days a week. That just depends.
Nice.
It's the one thing I've been struggling with actually. So getting back into work after mat leave and running my own business, and it's still being in that startup phase, as it were.
Yeah.
Is that me time. And I was just saying to Sandeep the other day, I can feel my frustration levels going through the roof sometimes because I've not spent 5 or 10 minutes on myself.
That's not
just
true.
To
you
sit
actually
down.
said, I figured out why I've been snappy recently. And I said, you haven't been snappy, Jess.
I was like, yes, I have.
Yeah, you have to find time.
It was something I was so religious that I would always give myself that time for, whether it was meditation or walk, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that is something I really want to get back into. So I just need to get up earlier and just get on with it, really.
Yeah, you must. I read that Atomic Habits book, and even just putting your gym clothes on the side, in the morning prepared, just prevents that. Oh, maybe I won't go. Just the simple habits that can. But you must do it. In fact, if I don't do it, my partner, she would send me there, because I think I'm a completely different person without
my wife describes me as a better husband and a better dad when I've exercised.
Yeah,
really?
And I think it's true. I genuinely believe that. I really do.
It's something that's more, it's across everywhere you read now. Fitness, health, food. It's made a massive difference for me. And after that, it's family time. I try not to bring the phone home. I saw a video actually this week with a family who've got a phone bin that they put the phones in the bin when they get home.
Nice.
Just for a couple of hours.
That's a good idea.
Just all put your phones in the bin and.
Yeah.
That
I'm
would
the
be
worst
great.
at that. I got to take some of
You
that
are,
advice on
yeah.
board.
Honestly, I think they have really distracted families.
Yeah.
I think especially young families. I think I took my daughter to see my mum, and she sat on the sofa on the phone the whole time. So when I got home, I was like, really, for just that 1 hour.
We're so consumed by it, though.
Honestly,
like we watch videos on it. You use it to record health, fitness. It's used for everything.
I know.
And it's one of those things that I thought, right, I work so hard when I'm on it, and I thought I need a break to spend dedicated time with my daughter, because that mum guilt creeps in that you're back at work and your daughter's in nursery or your child's in nursery. And I do a similar thing between kind of nursery pickup to when she goes to bed. I will do my utmost to not be on my phone and to really spend that quality time with her, because unless it's really genuinely urgent, actually you don't need to deal with it then and there. You can do it when she's in bed or when you have some time in the morning on the train or whatever it might be.
Yeah, they've taken over our lives a bit, haven't they?
Yeah. Before we go to you, Rob, what are you listening to at the moment when you put the AirPods in?
Anything Stephen Bartlett, so that Diary of a CEO. So I just love his guests. Yeah.
We'll try and get him on the next episode.
Yeah.
If you're watching, Steve,
yeah.
give us a shout.
No, anything that any of his guests, it's health normally or some science and fitness. Yeah. So they really connect. So
he had a great neuroscientist on that was
the lady from Australian lady.
Oh, so interesting.
She was,
It was a 2-hour episode, and I listened to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's so important. important, and a lot of what she was saying I'm doing that made me feel better. My mum's been diagnosed with dementia.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
18 months ago, and she was talking a lot about and how you can prevent it. So she was saying strong legs, so that was it. It was leg day. It was leg day.
Get those squats out.
It was leg day. Yes.
Yeah.
No,
wow.
that's what I'm listening to. Yes.
Cool. Thank you. Rob?
I mean, it probably won't surprise anyone doing what I do for a living that fitness plays a big part in my life.
Have you always been that way since, sports day? And
I was as a child,
clubs?
yeah. I mean, as a child, I used to swim to a pretty high level. But actually, through my 20s, I didn't really do very much exercise, really. I mean, in comparison to now, I'd go to the gym occasionally, but it didn't form a massive part of my life. And it's actually only since I've had my 3 young kids with my wife that...
You've got twins too, right?
I have, I've got twin 3-year-olds and a 9, nearly 10-month-old baby.
Yeah.
So... yeah, it's a full-on life at home, but...
I got worried for a second. I thought you were going to go, no, I don't, Jess.
I know. Well, that's why I kind of whispered it. And I was like, I'm pretty sure you do.
Sure, yeah. No, the twins are 3. It's full-on at home, but like I say, the exercise and 5 a.m. is absolutely the time to get it done. It's, before I leave or I go early and get to the gym or whatever. And yeah, it does take up a lot of time, but it definitely helps.
What time are you in bed by?
We normally try and get to bed somewhere between 9 and 10.
Wow.
Yeah. But
I'm asleep by 9:30.
We're still past 8 for me.
Yeah. Oh God, right.
Yeah.
My wife still takes the mix. She said, "Why are you going to bed so early?" It's like, I get up at 5.
Yeah.
Like, she gets up early as well. The kids are up between 6 and 6:30.
5 is still a lot earlier than 6:30.
It is, it is. And sometimes Wednesday I went to an exhibition and I needed to train before I left, so I was actually up at 4:30 to get out for a training session before then. But it's like my wife says, I'm a better person for it. And I do believe that.
There's this trend on social
Nice
media,
to
and it
do
has
this.
been for a while, where a lot of successful people
5 a.m. club.
speak about their morning routine, right? Before the first email or the first phone call or before they even see their kids. And typically everyone's getting up early and doing some form of mental or physical health exercise, whether it's a meditation or a prayer or go for a run or boxing bag or swimming, whatever it is. And it must be something to it, right?
The mornings are special. I mean, they're even more special in the summer when the sun's... I mean, there's nothing... But, I mean, it's tough getting out of bed when it's...
go for a run at 5 a.m. in sideways rain and
I mean,
freezing cold weather.
I always pat myself on the back. Yeah, you got out. You're out. But the summer, there's something special about it. There's no one around. The sun's coming up. There's mist, and you see the road sweeper, and it's really trivia stuff. But I don't know. There's something special about that time of day for me. I just like it. And in fact, I don't like the gym in the afternoon. I just prefer that's my time. There's something special about the morning.
Yeah, I used to run in the mornings and love it. Yeah.
I went to see Sir Alex Ferguson on stage in London about 5 or 6 years ago when he launched a book. So he still would have been relatively old and he had already retired. And he said that he's never once pressed the snooze button on his alarm. And even now, he still gets up really early. He said because once his body's woken up, someone's giving him a message to say, get up and do something. Don't go back to sleep. Yeah. And I still remember him saying that for all of his, I'm a big Man United fan, so he's a legend, But for me, that sticks out so much, the advice that he gave.
Yeah.
The important question is, do you still press snooze then?
Yeah, 3 times. Hence why I'm not Sir Alex.
No, it's a really interesting take on it. It's something I love a snooze button. I love that extra 10 minutes and whatever. But it actually, I think what you guys have said really resonates in terms of just getting up and doing it and how it makes you feel and getting rid of that frustration or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
For me, it's the time before these emails start and the phone calls start. And it's kind of, I treat it very much as my time. The kids are up at 6, 6:15, 6:30. And so as soon as I get back from my run, I'm making porridge for the kids or changing nappies or whatever else is involved with raising kids.
Yeah.
And so that time is my time, and then I'm kids, and then I'm Rob at Motivate until 6 o'clock, and then I'm dad again. And
That sounds like something that should be on GMTV. That motivator.
yeah.
Oh, geez.
I'll leave the leotard at home, though, Jess.
That's the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, as I say, no one needs to see that.
Actually, do you know what? Maybe we need something like that. So
No,
when
do
that
you know
used to come on,
I'm sorry,
my
Jess.
mum
Yeah.
would watch that, and we'd be there in the background doing the same thing.
At the end now. I think it's just timely to end it there.
Yeah.
Just leave all of our viewers picturing Rob in leotard on ITV
Yeah.
or whatever it used to be called.
Yeah.
So I think
Thanks, Jess.
it's planned between me and Jess, but nah. But yeah, we're that's a wrap. So thank you very much, all of you. Before we go, we want to thank our sponsors, JB Leitch, Motivate, and Daco Maintenance as well. And just thank you for tuning in. And we just wanted to say this is Property Management Unmasked, and stay tuned for more episodes.